Welcome to Shakin, where we provide the platform for entrepreneurs and thought leaders to share their stories in order to hopefully influence others to get out of the rat race and chase their own dreams. If you have any recommendations for guests or questions that you want to be asked, please don't hesitate to reach out. Anyways, if you enjoy the podcast, please like, comment, subscribe, and share in order to keep the podcast growing. Otherwise, I'm your host, Jack Moran, and this is Shakin' Hands. If you're looking for business mentorship, I have a place where you can get feedback on your unique personal development and business growth challenges. Over the last year, I've brought together a group of impact-driven thought leaders where we meet every single day to discuss psychology, communication, mindset, and business case studies. We have people who have made millions of dollars, lost millions of dollars, Harvard MBAs, and new entrepreneurs like you and I. Entrepreneurship can be lonely, so if you're looking for a support system, please follow the link in the description below for some more information. So your New Year's resolution is to get on more podcasts?
I don't really do resolutions, but yes, that is one of my goals for 25 is be more visible and claim more space.
Why is that?
Because I've been very passive in how I'm building my business, and I'm in the process of building another business because I am an entrepreneur and that's what we do. And I think creating the consistency for how I want to show up and being an actual leader in doing that.
Okay, what do you got going on right now?
So my business is The Essence Photographer. I am a photographer. I specifically work with brands, so typically solopreneurs and small businesses, helping them be more visible and get their message out in a clearer and more consistent way. And the next business is a brand agency, so I'm helping them actually create the strategy and implement everything so that they can go from getting these badass photos into actually knowing how to use them and putting them out so that they can make more money. Ultimately.
Why is that important to a business owner other than
making more money?
Yeah.
Well, it depends on how they want to build and how they want to scale. Typically, I work with solopreneurs, so they are the face of their brand. So they have to get out and they have to show up in order to generate the income that they need in order to make the impact that they want.
What's kind of your methodology for doing that?
Methodology. So it's funny you ask. I actually just defined it. It's called Beyond the Brand Method. And it's a 4-part process, and it helps them get into who they are so that they define the character of how they want to show up. And then a couple other parts. I don't know if I want to share all of it, but it's basically sourcing who you are so that you gain more confidence in how you want to show up and be seen.
Okay, that's a difficult challenge. How do you define for someone what their authentic self is? How do you help them?
I just ask them questions and I help them define it.
Okay, like what?
What do you want to be known for? What's your legacy?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Who are you becoming? Stuff like that. It depends on the person. It depends on how much I know of them and how they're showing up on social media and their website and the content that they present. Then I can ask curated questions based on what I want to know.
Okay, so that makes it easy for me. In your business, what do you want to be known for?
Yeah, helping people remember who they are and be able to show up with more authenticity and prowess.
Prowess.
Yeah.
I love that. It's a great mission.
Yeah.
How'd you get into photography?
So I was actually a model. I modeled for over a decade, and that's how I learned photography. So I've never actually taken a class. I just was art, and I learned by doing so. And I just paid attention to people setting up the lights and telling me I was being part of the story. So now ultimately what I do is help people tell their stories.
Gotcha. And what do you think the key aspects are to accurately defining someone's story and presenting it and giving it an authentic light?
Yeah. I honestly hate the word authenticity. So it's
what's a good replacement?
There's not essence. So
okay.
My business is The Essence Photographer. So I use essence instead of authenticity. It's the same thing, except essence is the core of who you are.
Why don't you like authenticity?
I think it's overused. It's just
too cliche.
It's a weird tick that I have. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What was your question?
What are the key aspects to get the essence. I was
Yeah.
trying to not use authenticity.
You can, yeah.
Get the essence of someone's story.
Yeah, it's genuine curiosity. I start with questions most of the time. So it's a process of like looking at how they're representing themselves currently and then how they want to be seen in the future. So it's like helping them build the brand with the vision of the bigger picture in mind.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
What was kind of like your journey into entrepreneurship? I know you said like, you were a model and then
It's a good one. Yeah. So I've been an entrepreneur my entire life. My
you were
first
born with it?
my first job, I'm pretty sure I was born with it. Yeah, I think, like, straight out of the gate, like, I'm the oldest of 3, so my first technical job, like, getting paid for was, babysitting, and don't let your kids babysit at age 9, people. It's a little too early. And then the entrepreneurial spirit kicked in, and I would take all the neighborhood kids because we lived on a cul-de-sac. So I would gather all the kids and teach them a dance routine, and then I went around to all the parents and sold them tickets to come see my performance.
That's hilarious.
It was funny.
That's
Yeah.
a great idea.
Yeah, it was fun. It was super fun, and, it was, like, all the skills that I currently use was, like, gathering the people and, like, creating the audience, and, being able to teach people something that they didn't know that they wanted to learn, and, making money selling tickets. Yeah.
So what did that evolve into? What was kind of your next venture, or like what was between gathering kids and putting on performances
Oh, man.
and now?
I've done quite a few things. So I sold clothes for a while. I kind of just follow my own whatever I'm inspired by and then like make a job out of it. So the modeling piece I actually fell into, I was scouted and I thought they were crazy. I'm like, what? I'm short. What? No. So I did that for many decades and in many decades, it was over a decade. And while I was modeling, I actually did a lot of, like brand ambassador work and I have a degree in marketing. So it was a lot of like in-person things and like bringing the crowd. So I did a lot of that kind of stuff and just honed my skills of like mastering the art of being in front of people so that they feel safe, welcome, and get the result that they came for.
What do you think are the biggest mistakes that you see in people's brands?
Hmm. Trying to be like somebody else. I think that's mistake number one is like not taking the time to figure out what your message is and who you're speaking to. There's the core of how entrepreneurs should show up. And then there's like being true to yourself. So a lot of the clients that I work with are rebels. So, I get to help them find the details of what makes them unique and like capitalize on that.
Okay, and then like what is the best way? You like to do it through photo, but you're doing the brand agency now. Are you guys doing like messaging as well?
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot of messaging and storytelling essentially, because it's like, what do you want to be known for is kind of the through line. And I think photography in general is about legacy. It's like you get the photos and now you can keep them forever. You might not, you might hate them, but the option is there to like be a part of your future. After you're gone, these photos can live on. Same as your messaging if you do it right. So it's like, who are you and why should we care?
Yeah, and I think it's like, at least for me, and I feel like for a lot of people, it is kind of difficult to define
It can be. Yeah.
that core self.
Yeah.
Do you help with that process at all, or would you rather them have that figured out and you're just like,
Yeah, I've definitely worked with many people where they think they know who they are, and then we get into this process that I take them through, and they're like, "Oh, didn't think of that." And I think the way that I like to help entrepreneurs, specifically solopreneurs that are the brand, it's getting into the different parts of who you are. So I believe that everyone has multifacets to their humanity and how they want to be seen and what they want to stand up for. So and that's like the fun for me is like figuring out what your characters are and how you can be more dynamic in how you show up online.
what have been the like biggest hangups that you've seen in solopreneurs?
Getting stuck on the visuals, like, I'm 10 pounds overweight, or I don't know what to
Oh,
wear, or
interesting.
yeah, it's a lack of ultimately trust in yourself, and, you know, getting stuck in the details is where most people get hung up, which is why I just make it easy, like full service. So it's the most important thing is who you are, and then all the details are basically the fluff. Important, yes, but not as important as like defining who you are and what your actual message is. People will pay attention to that and they'll be magnetized.
So as a creative, and wanting to voice your own essence and your own brand and have your own creative spin on your business, but you're obviously being influenced as well by your clients,
Sure.
vision.
Mhm.
How do you find that balance and still, keep your creative integrity, while meeting the needs of your clients?
Yeah, good question. I do a lot of personal projects. So I see every client that I work with, I'm a facilitator. I basically like help them define their story and then help them create visuals of how to tell that. And for me, it's ideas all the time. I'm also ADD, so it's just like I wake up at 3 in the morning, I'm like, oh my God, I gotta write this down. So I tend to have like multiple projects that I'm working on, um, just for art's sake. So, and I do self portraits too. So even when I don't have someone to play with, I can like create art just because I'm inspired. So,
How do you cultivate like a good foundation for inspiration and creativity?
uh,
What are the key elements that in your environment that you need to?
for finding inspiration,
Yeah, is it intentional or is it passive?
yeah, I am inspired by everything. For I think I have an unfair advantage because I can be inspired by like how the light is reflecting off of this table, for example. So, um, as far as like how it would help someone else find that, it's like getting into what um sparkles for you. Ultimately, it's like what lights you up, and how can we make that bigger?
So I can deal with that, like, or it can be a bad thing for me being inspired by a lot of things because it can be distracting.
It's totally distracting.
So how do you stay grounded in kind of like your core mission when you have all these things that are inspiring you all around?
Wow. Good question. I don't ultimately. And that's why I'm always like creating other businesses. And that's also why I work with entrepreneurs because I can stay inspired by them and like it keeps me in my lane so that I'm not just like bouncing all over the place. It clients give me purpose. So it's like they keep me grounded because then I have a focus of my attention for all the inspiration that's going to come anyway. But I get to channel it into telling their story.
What would you say are the like key aspects or characteristics of your own personality, like both the pros and the cons?
Well, the ADD thing is real.
Me too.
Yeah, it's I lose my train of thought often, or I'll just like move on to the next thing and like not finish that thing. So, um, yeah, consistency is where I probably struggle the most, which is a large part of why I do the work that I do is to like help people do what I need help with, and therefore like I can do the same. Um, yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, so to follow up with that, like what habits have, because I deal with that, and I think a lot of people in our audience and a lot of
In
entrepreneurs,
general, yeah,
have that ADD characteristic and can kind of get spread thin by distractions,
it's
and
true.
it's difficult to stay focused. So what habits do you implement in your own life that kind of counterbalance? Um,
Yeah, time blocking is really important.
okay.
So if it's not on my calendar, I won't do it. Also, accountability is really important for me. So doing co-working and body doubling. I don't know if you're a body
No, it's
doubler. So body doubling is like physically having another human next to you so that you can stay focused. Specifically for me, like there's millions of types of ADD. There's not millions, but everybody how it shows up is different.
Yep.
And
Okay.
for me, without another human next to me, I just don't. I'll just like keep scrolling through Instagram or click 42 different tabs and not be able to like pick one. So having another person who's productive, ideally, it's someone who's like also doing work and staying in their dedication to self, is really helpful. So that's body doubling.
Interesting. Yeah, I know you don't like New Year's resolutions, but one of my New Year's resolutions this year is to be more intentional about my environment,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that you're a product of your surroundings, especially when you have ADD,
Of
because
course.
whatever's in your direct line of sight
Yeah.
is going to uh, attract your consciousness.
Yes.
So if I can be more intentional about what's within that line of sight, and remove those things that
Exactly.
I know distract me,
Yeah.
it leads to more
Better productivity. Yes.
more success.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you said, we talked off air, you started out in San Francisco. Is that where you were originally from, or that's just where you were before Denver?
No, yeah, I don't have an originally. My family's all in Maryland, so that's like
Cool.
where I started my career was Maryland, DC, New York. And I lived in California for 8.5 years. Yeah, and then the pandemic. So I lived roughly 3.5 years just traveling. So, and I have a more global network. So I also photograph retreats. So I got to like go to a couple different countries, and just live the nomadic lifestyle, even though I had an in-person service. So it was a wildly fun challenge.
What did you learn from traveling like that? I find like travel to be some of the like most insightful experiences you can have. What did you learn from traveling, and why is it important to you now?
Yeah, I think it's always been important to me. I'm an Air Force brat, so I moved around just enough to like make me uncomfortable, and so I learned how to take the not not knowing anyone in an area and like having being forced to start over into a superpower. So like now I can go anywhere and talk to random strangers at a bar or sit next to someone on the bus and be like, hey, start some random conversation. So I think that skill set of like not being afraid to fail, essentially, um, has formed who I am.
Did you have that fear before?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was I was painfully shy as a kid.
Okay.
Yeah,
How did you get through that?
forced myself.
Force yourself?
Yeah, I think, there was I went to college. I think that was part of it was I left everything that I knew behind and then I grew up. So, and it was in college where I decided that I was more of a performer. So I've always been a dancer as well. But I like threw myself into dance and actually being on stage and like create more creative endeavors in general. And yeah, just making myself be who I wanted to be.
Through like this journey as an entrepreneur, what has been the most difficult moment that you've encountered thus far?
Moments are hard. The most difficult. I mean, the pandemic was hard, man.
What was hard about it for you?
I had two businesses that were very successful, and I was forced to not be able to do anything. So in the interim, while before I like packed up all my stuff and just hopped on the road, I built an online community. So, um, yeah, I just, kept making up something to entertain myself with and lost a large piece of myself because creativity and like helping people tell their stories is what I do. So, and not being able to do that physically was very challenging.
How did you get through that?
Well, part of it was building the thing online. So I created like an online mastermind and like a whole community so that I was still like being with people, but not like physically with people. And learned a whole different skill set because doing virtual things is very different than in person. So that was part of it. And, therapy, all the ways that you like take care of yourself. I had my support group and I built, a bigger network because I could be more global. So yeah, just finding more people doing cool shit.
Did you have any big realizations through that process that are beneficial to you today?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was anything that I didn't know. Like, I thrive on human connection, so it just made it more obvious that, like, being forced to stay in my studio by myself and not do anything was torturous. So, um, yeah, I think, human connection is very important in general, but specifically as a creative and a generator, I don't know if you know human design, but, like, I need to have somebody else to bounce ideas off of, and it's a lot more satisfying if you can, like, create something tangible.
What's some human design? I feel like we had a guest, this girl Emily Eld might have mentioned that to me, but I
Yeah,
forget what it is.
it's another way to get to know yourself. So it's based. I can't speak to all the details. I know just enough about myself to know that it's true and accurate. But it's follows your um the
Is
dynamic of who you are. So it basically like helps you get a clear definition of how you came into this life based on your birth date,
okay,
your
yeah, I have heard of this.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's wild. You should definitely check it out.
Do you know what your Myers-Briggs is?
I used
Are you extroverted or introverted?
I'm an ambivert. Yeah, I'm equal parts of both.
Equal parts of both. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's
How do you define that?
quite dynamic in my brain often. So I like to be the center of attention. I'm also a Leo. So I don't know if you follow horoscope, but
Not really, but
yeah. So I have tastes of like lots of ways that we define ourselves based on whatever systems. So I like to be the center of attention, but I'm also a hermit. So while I like will stand on stage and like demand attention, I also have to resource myself and go home and like disappear for 3 days.
and a lot of people think that like extroversion versus introversion is if you like to go and socialize, but it has more to do with how you react afterwards.
Right.
If it charges you or energizes you,
Exactly.
which it can do both for you.
I'm both. Yeah.
Okay, so
Because like if I host an event, for example, and I have like a room full of people, I'm like, this is amazing, and then I'm high for 3 days. But on the flip side, also, if I host an event and then I have to like go away, which is why before I hit the road and just kept driving for 3 years, I hated driving, hated it. But I like turned it into like this place where I would just sit with my thoughts and get to know myself better and listen to some good podcasts. So yeah. Yeah.
okay, so the next one is, are you more introverted or sensory? So introverted is like, excuse me, not introverted, intuitive or sensory. So, intuitive being like you think more in the future, kind of go with the flow. Sensory being like I like the here and now, more of like a list maker type.
Definitely a list maker. Yeah, I think I also try to stay in the present. So while like part of my business is helping people figure out who they're becoming, without knowing where you are right now, nothing works. So I would say I'm probably more sensory, but
More sensory.
definitely both.
Okay. Yeah, and like most people do, like in different situations, will lean one way or the other.
Yeah.
And I think that like there's no one size fits all, but the Myers Briggs is more just like a baseline on what is your natural impulse.
I'm gonna have to do that again.
Yeah, it's I think there's a website that's the easiest one I found is just I think it's called 16personalities.com. And it's like 20-minute quiz and it'll give you it. But third one is thinking or feeling. So do you make decisions with your heart or with your head?
Well, if I'm actually true to my alignment, it would be with my gut, technically.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm wildly impulsive. So probably with my heart.
Feeling, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely feeler.
Yeah, definitely a feeler.
Okay, and then the last one is if you are perceptive or judgment or perceiving. So like indecisions, do you know right away what your decision is, or you like to keep your options open? Decisions kind of give you anxiety, or like with a meeting a new person, um, right away if you like them, or it takes a little bit longer to like get to know them before you make that decision.
Sure. When you put the people spin on it, it complicates things. But I don't default to judgment. I like to see the whole picture, and I think perspective is everything. Um, and I trust my gut. So if I'm meeting someone for the first time, I'm like, yeah, no, you're not my people. I'll still give them another chance, but usually I'm right.
So in decision making, like in a specific decision, if you have a decision to make, are you usually like go with that
Yes
one,
or no?
or yeah, it's a yes or no, so more judgment. So yeah, you'd be an either an EISFJ. So you got to look that up now afterwards and see which one,
Totally picking it up.
if it lines up with you.
Cool.
That was a little tangent. That is absolutely has zero benefit to our audience. But
It might, questions people think.
yeah, maybe it'd spark some inspiration. You had talked about before, like having to go from this in-person business into this digital business, which a lot of people experience. I'm kind of experiencing that. What did you learn from that journey? What were kind of the key elements to having a successful virtual business that is different from having an in-person business? And then what elements did you replicate from that are similar in both businesses?
Yeah. So the thing that I did not focus on was generating income. So while I have, there's like almost 1,000 people in the community and it was very active, I didn't monetize it, which I'm really good at with my photography business and everything else. So it was an interesting dynamic watching myself like not ask for money, which also, led to the chaos that happened after. So and like what I do now, like my main focus is helping people establish themselves well enough so that the money just comes easily. So it's like becoming the magnet for the business you want to build. So I guess that's the transition. I like saw my lack of ability or whatever the word is there that I just like failed on generating income. I've made it into more of a focus now.
Becoming the magnet to the business that you want to build. Is that what you just said?
I think so.
Something. What does that mean?
So a lot of what I do is storytelling, as I mentioned, but it's specifically for solopreneurs. Like if you are the face of your brand, people know, like, and trust you based on what you're putting out there. So it's not only like the visuals that you use that stop the scroll, but it's also the messaging that you use to convince them or to position yourself or to like be seen as the authority. So it's
Gotcha.
becoming the magnet.
Being like a thought leader.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Is that's through credible information, through passion? What other aspects?
Yeah, it's definition, I would say, is like part of it is figuring out um, the different elements of who you are and how to define the pieces of that.
Okay, so if you had like a cheat sheet here, like a form that I had to fill out to define my brand, what would be the things that I need to define? Like, would it be my mission, my
Yeah, those are all part of it, like your mission, your vision, your message, like what the legacy statement, I would say.
what's a legacy statement? What
Like
legacy do you want to leave?
what you actually want to be known for. Like one, if you died today, how do you want people to remember you?
Okay. What's your answer?
My goal and my mission is to be inspiration.
The inspiration?
Be inspiration. Yeah.
What does that mean?
To be inspiration.
To be inspiring, or is it different than that?
It's more, I would consider it more comprehensive. So yes, there's the act of being inspiring, but I also want people that I interact with to feel their own inspiration. So it's not just like me.
So you want to inspire inspiration.
Correct.
Interesting. Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
As a creative, and I'll kind of like wrap it up with a couple questions here, but as a creative, for a lot of creatives, sales is difficult and sourcing clients is difficult.
Yeah.
How do you get through that challenge? Like, how do you find clientele, and what's your methodology for that?
Yeah, I have lots of ideas on that.
Oh,
For me personally, I like working with leaders. So specifically community organizers that if I work with this person and their people trust me, then my job is much easier because I go to the source essentially.
you find like a distribution channel.
Sure, you can put it that way. Yeah. Or for my business specifically, it's the head of the community. So I mostly work with women entrepreneurs. So I tend to gravitate towards community leaders that like are coaches typically, and they have a community of 40 to 900 people.
Interesting. So go right to the top
So
of the influence
so
center.
I go to the top of the food chain and then let it trickle down from there.
That's a great idea. So how do you like interface with those people? What are the keys to like, because I think I understand like what my strategy would be, but for someone who may be more introverted as a creative, it might be even scarier to go to an executive and
Yeah.
facilitate that relationship and sell themselves.
Yeah. I lead everything with curiosity. So, and I
Oh, that's a good point.
the easiest way to get someone to trust you is to ask curious questions and to be interested, not
really good advice.
interesting. Yeah. So, and the people like to talk about themselves. So if you give them reasons to talk about themselves, they will automatically like you better.
And then once you've kind of like started with that curiosity, what do you think are the elements of a long-term relationship
Uh,
that's
helping them,
beneficial for both parties?
yeah, I think helping them see the gaps in how they're showing up now, and my expertise. So it's like showing what they don't have, and then positioning myself as the expert.
Interesting. That's really cool. What would you say, and this will be my final question, what would you say is something that you didn't know when you started on your journey as an entrepreneur that you know now that you wish you knew before, or like one profound piece of advice for entrepreneurs?
Oh, you had to put in the profound part.
Mm.
Trust yourself. Yeah, when I started, I did what everybody else was doing, and I didn't do it my own way. And I think ultimately that's like the end game is like actually being able to trust yourself to know that you know best for you.
Right. And I think, yeah, it's like using your intuition. And I think that when you, well, I mean, maybe this is a personal belief, but I feel like you drive your reality like from the inside out.
Totally.
And when you are utilizing external to drive that reality, it causes an incongruence with your like your essence. I won't use authentic stuff with your essence, and that leads to conflict in your life. Whereas when you are using your intuition to like write your own script, then you get more alignment in your life, and you start attracting the things that you truly want.
Exactly.
Well, if people are like interested in working with you or could be interested in your services, where can they find you?
Yeah. My brand is The Essence Photographer. So it's www.theessencephotographer.com, and same handle on all the socials.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I appreciate you coming out. It's been great talking to you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Yep.